Hello everyone, my name is Adrian and welcome to my passion project presentation. My passion project is about using art as an adaptive coping mechanism. Throughout the semester, I have taken the time to create a few art pieces that I will show in this video. I chose my topic for two reasons. The first is that when this project was introduced, I saw it as an opportunity to improve my art. I have always been interested in art, but I have often struggled to find the time and motivation to work on that passion consistently. This project has given me the opportunity, or excuse really, to work on my art. The second reason is that I have often struggled with controlling my stress and anxiety. When I first started attending college, I felt overwhelmed and struggled to keep my mental well-being in check. In that aspect, I am not alone. In a recent study by the JED Foundation, 60% of students entering college wish that they had been emotionally prepared for college, and 36% expressed that they felt incapable of managing the stress of everyday life. Furthermore, college students often utilize maladaptive coping mechanisms such as rumination, avoidance, binge eating, and substance abuse that end up creating more stress in the long term. Stress and anxiety in the academic setting can be seen globally. According to The Guardian's education correspondent Sally Wheel, a recent study of 38,000 students in the UK found that there are high levels of anxiety and substance abuse among university students. 87.7% of the surveyed population admitted to struggling with stress and anxiety, and 44.7% admitted using drugs and alcohol to cope. This level of substance abuse was also seen in a survey among university students in Berlin, Germany, with 45.9% of students admitting to using illicit drugs within the past year. With stress and maladaptive behaviors being prevalent problems for college students like me, I needed my passion project to address this topic and provide an outlet to help reduce stress and actively practice adaptive coping mechanisms. But what exactly are adaptive and maladaptive coping mechanisms? According to Ashley Peterson, a former mental health nurse, coping mechanisms are strategies we employ to help relieve stress. While adaptive and maladaptive coping mechanisms can help reduce stress in the short run, only adaptive coping mechanisms will help in the long run. It is also important to note that since maladaptive coping mechanisms focus on avoiding the problem, they increase stress and anxiety in the long run. Adaptive coping involves using optimism, solution-focused actions, personal growth, flexibility, and creativity to combat stressors. It is crucial that when we encounter stressors, we take note of how we are coping. Are we avoiding the problem entirely, or are we approaching it healthily? For my passion project, I wanted to endorse using art as a healthy way to deal with stress. According to Dr. Elizabeth Scott, art therapy can be an effective way to reduce stress and helps disrupt other maladaptive coping mechanisms such as rumination. Art can serve as a visual depiction of emotion that may be difficult to convey through words. Art can give our emotions and feelings a tangible existence that may help us better understand why we think in a certain way. Another effective strategy is journaling. The University of Rochester Medical Center states that journaling can effectively manage anxiety, reduce stress, and cope with depression. As well as being a way to track your emotions, journaling can help you prioritize your problems and concerns, identify potential triggers, and allows for self-talk. I kept a journal for my passion project to track how I felt before and after art projects. While there are multiple strategies for emotion-led art therapy, I created art that would be fun and serve as distraction. On average, once I started a project, it was easy for me to stop ruminating on what was troubling me. I could shift my focus onto the task at hand and calm myself down. After I finished a piece, I would write down in my journal how I felt afterward and was able to analyze and reflect on my emotions. One of my favorite techniques for this project was painting, specifically watercolor painting. While I used many mediums for this project, I found painting to be the easiest to work with and the most expressive. Overall, I found the experience very beneficial for me. I highly recommend that anyone currently struggling to cope with stress and anxiety, or perhaps has been waiting to get into art, to take this as an opportunity to start. Getting into art may seem daunting, but I want to provide some tips to help you get started. In an article titled Painting for Beginners, How to Get Started, artist Lisa Martyr discusses 3 beginner-friendly painting mediums. In her guide, she recommends acrylic, watercolor, and gouache. Acrylic paints is one of the more versatile paints. It dries faster than oil paints and is more forgiving than watercolor or gouache. Since acrylic paint is water soluble, it can easily be thinned without the use of chemical thinners by use of water. They also allow easy cleanup since they only require soap and water to clean the brushes. Martyr also recommends using student-grade acrylic paint to save money. Watercolor is also known for being a cost-effective and beginner-friendly medium. You can buy tubes or pans of watercolor paint, which are known for lasting a long time. Some tips to remember when working with watercolor is that watercolor remains active when it dries, meaning that you can still manipulate the pigment after it dries by adding water. Watercolor also requires using watercolor paper, which is thicker than regular paper, which tends to absorb water too quickly. There are two standard techniques with watercolor: wet on wet and wet on dry. Wet on wet involves applying the watercolor onto wet paper. This allows for a less structured and somewhat borderless painting. Wet on dry involves using watercolor on dry paper, which allows for a more controlled and focused approach. Wet on dry gives the watercolor an ink-like feel. Lastly, Martyr recommends gouache, which she describes as an opaque watercolor. Gouache, like acrylic, allows you to paint from dark to light rather than light to dark, something that is difficult to do with watercolor. Martyr then discusses colors, painting surfaces, brushes, and other materials. I will provide a link in the description for anyone interested in reading the article. Art is a beneficial hobby to have, especially when you are dealing with stress and anxiety. For those of you who are interested in getting into art, I challenge you to take 30 minutes to an hour out of your day and try it out. Experiment with different mediums and find one that works best for you. Keep a journal where you can sketch and write your feelings. Give it a shot and see how it helps benefit your everyday life, and who knows, maybe you'll discover a lifelong passion. Thank you for watching, and as my high school art teacher always said, stay productive, not reproductive.